welcome to the official catch-up. Today I've got Alex Marr. How are you getting on, Alex?
Not bad, just hanging in there like everyone else.
Yep, and the reason we've got you on, Alex, is obviously because you're known for writing for Stonewaller magazine with a sort of incline in the Highland League, I believe.
So a little bit of the Highland League, a little bit of the North Juniors, and a little bit of the Tayside Juniors. I'm split my time between Aberdeen and Dundee, so a little bit of everything in this part of the world.
Yeah, and I've obviously been made aware that the Highland League, similar to down here, obviously with the West of Scotland League being formed, is there any sort of, I've heard rumours of like the Caledonian League going to be under the Highland League next season and stuff like that. Is that something you?
Yeah, I've heard what most people have heard, that the North Cali League are really keen on becoming, the Tier 6 feeder, similar to the West of Scotland League, for the Highland League, especially in the north part of the country. I think Highland League at first were quite hesitant towards that because, if you're, especially clubs like Clachnacuddon or Fort William are being near the bottom of that division, they do worry that they might actually get relegated into that, and that would be quite a big hit financially for them, especially because it's less games and it's a much shorter season in the North Cali. I don't know if it'll be next season, obviously, with the whole coronavirus outbreak going on. It might be put back a year from what I've read. I've read little things on Football North and stuff. And also North Juniors look like they're thinking about doing the same, but as a Grampian feeder for the Highland League as well.
In terms of the Highland League, we've seen the likes of Lowland League come up with some of the Highland League teams this season in like the Scottish Cup and stuff. Is there? I don't think there's much in terms of the difference in quality. Would you agree? I don't know how much Lowland League games you've been to or that, but for me, I always hear the top end of the Highland League. They're decent sides.
Yeah, I think at the top end of the Highland League, I think Cove were far and above anyone in the non-league game last year, just purely for the money they were able to spend, and they've proven that in League Two by running away with it. I've seen Cove 4 or 5 times this season, and they're almost a championship side in quality. I think now, especially since a couple of teams aren't spending as much money anymore. I know Turriff, they were they're one of the big spenders in the Highland League now. They've pretty much cut. They've cut massively. They're down near the bottom, fighting with Fort William this season. In the Lowland, there's probably a better strength and depth. And in the Highland's probably quite a big gap. You see 7 and 8-0 wins happen quite regularly in the Highland League. Like, I think Brora's most common victory this season was 4-0.
Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, I know a lot of people were kind of against it, but the Highlands' decision to award Brora the title, I'm actually, I thought they were far enough ahead that decision could be made, but it's been a bit, well, I wouldn't say controversial, but some teams have said it's a wee bit too soon to declare that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Highland League doing that?
I think it's just a pragmatic decision because the Highland League already is behind with fixtures, as they are every year. Having a 17-team division, complicates things, especially with clubs like Fort William and I think Nairn as well, and Clachnacuddon all having various ground issues with postponements, or I think Clack's an issue with the ground, had an arson attack at the ground recently. So I think it's a pragmatic thing to do, and it means that there's one less thing they have to think about when and if the season does start back.
Yeah, I agree. I think they were far enough ahead that that was maybe a sensible decision, as you said. And it's similar with the Lowland League in a lot of respects, with postponements and whatnot for grounds. But I don't think we were that, we weren't too far apart. But obviously, we don't know what's going to happen and how long this is going to take. So, the decision is going to be a difficult one. I keep saying that to people. But yeah, it's going to be difficult to decide what's going to happen with Scottish football the longer this takes.
Yeah, of course. I think it's probably a lot different in the Lowland because you've got a lot more artificial surfaces, so postponements are a little bit less common, and also the gap between Bonnyrigg and Kelty is much smaller than it is between Brora and anyone in the Highland League. So I think you can sort of see where they're coming from, just trying to be sensible this time, and no one was going to catch Brora. They were going to win the league. So I don't think it's really any skin off anyone's nose to just award them the title.
Yeah.
I think Lowland's difficult because you've got relegation to come into it as well.
Yeah. I think that's one of the main points of the Lowland League, the main differences as well. But in terms of yourself, how did you get involved with writing for Stonewaller magazine?
Well, it's my friend Scott Wilson. It's his magazine, and he just basically said fancy writing, doing some articles for it. 'Cause I've done various blog articles over the years. I've written a couple of articles for the Dundee Courier, because that's where I'm from. A few other things as well over the years. So whilst I've been at university in Aberdeen the last 4 long years at uni, just thought I'd go to Newgrounds, write a little bit about it. Written a thing about Peterhead, written a thing about Cove. Going to be writing something about Inverurie, and the fact I've tried to go and see them 5 times this season for various things, transport issues or game getting postponed. When I've got to the ground, I've not been able to see them. So it's just really, I want to go and see new football at different grounds at different levels, and anything that allows me to do that, I'm all for.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you said obviously you're at Aberdeen Uni in your 4th year. I did notice that you're studying politics. How's that going?
Well, last night I was actually up really late because I was finishing my final ever essay for politics, which has been a bit of a struggle, especially the last 2 years, where it's just been, as soon as I turn on the TV, it's the first thing I see, and as soon as it's the first thing I see. So it's a bit frustrating. Pretty much it's my uni work and it's just life generally at the minute. But I've enjoyed it. It's been really good, and I think I might actually be doing a postgrad in it. So.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. My friend, one of my friends, who we studied social science together, and I went to uni. Well, we all went to uni and studied politics. One of my friends last summer recently became a PhD, which is a bit funny, but yeah, he done his postgrad in, I think it was like international politics or something. I think he had aspirations to be in like MI5 or something like that.
That's what my parents keep on telling me to apply. Apply to diplomatic service, you'll get in. I don't think that will be my cup of tea. Just take some really basically cushy job someplace.
Yeah, and how's it going with uni? Like, I take it, one thing I usually ask people in terms of the work or studying, I take it the uni have been really good for you guys. Obviously, it's a wee bit different for yourself in 4th year. I take it you're just waiting on handing in your dissertation and stuff like that.
Well, actually, I handed in my dissertation in January. Ours was due back then. It was effectively like a course in our first term of 4th year.
Okay.
Some people I know are actually still just handing theirs in now, so it's a lot worse for them. It's dependent if you do a politics dissertations are earlier, but history or sociology is later on.
Yeah.
To be fair, university, 2 course coordinators that I've got for the 2 modules at the minute, they've been absolutely fantastic. They've given extensions when people have needed them, because obviously we can't access the library and get the resources that we need for some essays. And they've basically said, oh, well, your exams in May, they're just going to be a take-home exam and stuff. So they've been absolutely fantastic, people at the uni, and the library people are trying to digitize as many resources as they can. So I think everyone's trying to be really understanding, which is exactly what you need.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really good to hear. And from what I gather, you're a Dundee United fan?
Yeah, long suffering for the last 3.5 years. Pretty much the time I've been at university has been the same time United have been in the Championship, so it's a bit of an overlap there. But it's one of the reasons I'm really wanting to see the season played out to an end.
Yeah. Will you be disappointed if they don't get promoted, even if football can't continue?
I'd be very disappointed, obviously, but there is more important things, and people are, people are quite literally dying at the minute. So I think it's a worry. Hopefully, people see sense. Sensible thing to do would be, if they can't finish the season, to just make it a 14-team top flight, and then that could also have the knock-on effect of promoting one team from the Highland, one team from the Lowland as well.
Yeah.
So that would be what I'd think would be a sensible thing to do. But whether or not, like, Scottish football and doing the sensible thing doesn't always work out, as we've seen with the whole pyramid discussions.
Yeah, it was. It took a long time, but I think we're getting there down this way anyway. The Highland League, obviously, there's a lot more to consider in terms of the Caledonian League, and you said the Highland. I don't really know much about the sort of North Juniors. I couldn't even, if you asked me, I probably couldn't even name a team really. I know the likes the sort of Dundee teams, obviously like Lochee and Tayport, but further than that, I have no clue, mate.
Yes, but the big thing with the North Juniors is Banks of D have been dominating that league, similar to probably Auchinleck Talbot in the West Juniors, and they've got the most money, they've got the best facilities. They're effectively a Highland League club playing the North Juniors. They actually applied 10 years ago to join the Highland League, and they were one of the 4 teams that applied that didn't get in, because there's various conspiracy theories amongst Banks of D and Cove fans as opposed to why they weren't accepted, and teams like Strathspey were.
Yeah, I stand corrected in that. Yeah, I have heard of Banks of D, obviously.
Yeah.
But, the other teams, I wouldn't have a clue. But yeah, I take it it's still similar, Alex. I take it Banks of D are still dominating the North Juniors.
Yeah, I think they've won 5 or 6 titles in a row. Could even be more than that, to be honest with you. The thing is, it does frustrate, I think, a lot of teams in North Juniors because they've already got a club licence.
Mm-hmm.
So they've already got their Scottish Cup place every year, and if they win the North Juniors, they're just taking away a Scottish Cup place from Stonehaven or Coulter or Sunnybank, but they're obviously no longer in the Super League. But teams like that I think would be quite rightly cheesed off at that. On the reasons as well that they're hoping that a few of them might are quite interested in the pyramid, so Banks of D could get promoted to where they should really be, and it means that there's probably a bit more of a bit ambitious and can go and play in the Highland League, and then a mechanism if for whatever reason they need to drop down again. The interesting thing though, I think, is what happens with the Tayside clubs. Yeah. I've seen a few cryptic tweets this week from Lochee United and Carnoustie Panmure saying, "Oh, don't worry about us, we've got everything sorted." I think Carnoustie Panmure especially, are really wanted to join the East of Scotland at one stage, even though they were miles away from the nearest club. But I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not they end up in some sort of feeder.
Yeah, and Derek obviously done a fantasy sort of football manager database with all these sort of changes and what's been talked about. And one of the things he done for that area, obviously specifically sort of Dundee, Tayside, is he made basically their own wee sort of fantasy league that complements the Highland and the Lowland and whatnot. So it'd be interesting to see if that sort of thing happens.
I spoke to a couple of fans from Lochee United, because I've seen Lochee United earlier this season. We saw them in the Scottish Cup against Burnt Island, and the games won 7-0, which honestly was in a monsoon. I'm amazed the game even continued. I spoke to 1 or 2 fans, and they are interested in joining the pyramid. And one of the things I did hear was that they'd, from one fan who's on Twitter quite a lot, and on, I think he also posts on Pat and Bovril, was that he'd be interested in some sort of Grampian Tayside Super League as well.
Yeah,
I think that's grown quite a lot of popularity amongst a lot of fans because they already have, I think it's called the GA Engineering Cup, which is a cup for the North and the Tayside junior clubs, or North and the Angus and Dundee junior clubs that they play in every year, and that's quite successful. And I think they play the final at Tannadice every year to a decent crowd. So
yeah,
I think that there's certainly a lot of interest from clubs for that, or certainly for fans anyway.
Yeah, definitely, and teams like Lochee and Tayport are were massive in the East Juniors, or so it'd be good to see them involved in the pyramid. From my perspective, I've been up to Tayport. I think I've been up to Lochee as well, actually, years ago, obviously, but I've certainly visited both them clubs and was very impressed with the quality back then, and I don't think the quality has changed much. I believe, if I remember right, I think Lochee played BSC Glasgow in the Scottish Cup and took them to a replay, if I remember correctly. I think it was Lochee.
Yeah, they did in the second round. I think I was meant to go to that, but for whatever reason I couldn't. I think the train from Aberdeen was cancelled, and yeah, I think there was a horrible dive from one of the BSC players got sent off for a second yellow card when they're 1-0 up, and I think that's what got it taken to a replay. I think that game might have actually shown Lochie United and a couple of East juniors what's possible if you do join the pyramid. Because I think 5 or 6 years ago there was certainly, and you guys certainly would have noticed this, that there was a bit of a snobbery from I think a lot of junior clubs towards the Lowland League, and there certainly still is, but it's a lot less now with East Kilbride and BSC Glasgow both going quite far in the Scottish Cup. And BSC I think beat Lochie United 3-1 in the replay. I think that kind of shows what can be done in the pyramid, how a small, well-run club can progress and almost reach the SPFL. East Kilbride unlucky. I think lost on penalties to Cowdenbeath a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So there's certainly, and of course Edinburgh City have been promoted. There's certainly a lot more. I think the Lowland League and Highland League, as a result, has been held in a slightly higher regard by a lot of these junior clubs, and that's probably only a good thing in allowing the pyramid to progress.
I don't know if you've been listening in, obviously, but the word, I think it's all up in the air at the moment, obviously, but the word was that Brechin City, if relegated, would be coming down to the Lowland League and not the Highland League. A bit of a controversial one, I would say. What are your thoughts on that, Alex?
Complete rubbish. I mean, Brechin is 30 minutes from Aberdeen. It's in the Highlands of Highland territory, as you would say. It's in the north of Scotland. They shouldn't be playing in the Lowland League. And this idea that they recruit players from the Central Belt. So if Elgin recruit players from the Central Belt and get relegated, does that mean they get to play in the Lowland League? It's just a complete. It's a ridiculous idea. And obviously, Brechin are a really well respected club in the SPFL, and I know a few Brechin fans, and they are top lads, and it's a really great ground, especially with the hedge and everything. But I can understand where they're coming from in the fact that they're trying to do what's best for the club, and that's totally understandable. But there's a lot of players in the Angus and Tayside area that don't really have a club that's just below the SPFL for them to play in. That's a whole, player market that they've not tapped into, and they could tap into if they were relegated to the Highland League. And to be honest, I think going into the Highland League would probably give them a bit more stability. Because if you go in the Lowland League, you're going to be in a league where, in a couple of years, probably filled with, like Auchinleck, Talbot, Bowness, and Lithgow. And the Lowland League's just going to get stronger and stronger every year. And we've seen that with Bonnyrigg and Kelty. Obviously, the two most recent additions, and they're the top two in the table. The Highland League, Banks of the are probably going to be the only new addition if the pyramid does get set up. So it's going to stay the same. You're going to be playing teams that are a lot more local, with the exclusion of Wick, which is once a season. It seems quite a foolish decision to try and play in the Lowland League. Hopefully, the SFA will see sense and just say, look, you're north of the boundary, you're playing in that league.
Yeah, I don't know how much it was to do with the club or how much sway they had with the SFA, but it's certainly something we've heard or known about for a wee while, and obviously we have similar reactions to yourself, Alex. I said it on the podcast we've done, obviously, about the updates on the pyramids, but they're in Brechin, they're in Brechin, so
it's literally 35 minutes from Aberdeen. Or maybe 40, but the idea that they can claim they're in the lowland part of the country is absolutely ridiculous. I personally think I still think Perth teams should probably be considered in the Highlands. Because there's already a massive geographical disparity in terms of number of clubs between North and South as it is. To push that boundary up to what would be Stonehaven effectively, or Montrose, it just makes everything 10 times more complicated than it needs to be. And if you want to have 2 Tier 5 feeders to the SPFL, they've got to be of the same quality. Yeah. That's not going to happen if you're going to basically say to teams in Tayside who are in the north part of the country to play in the lowland. It's quite ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah, similar. Share the view, Alex. In terms of Banks O'Dea, obviously you mentioned them a wee bit earlier, but I did hear for the longest time that they had no interest in joining the Highland League. Was that mainly because of the initial rejection they had many years ago?
From what I've read, that seems to be the case. Although I think there's been a lot of discussion about the SFA taking away Scottish Cup places for teams that aren't in the pyramid or aren't licensed. and they've got a license, but one of the stipulations of the license, I think, is to show some sort of interest in the pyramid, and they've got a league to apply to that's got a vacancy. So
yeah, and I think it was the same for Auchinleck. Like I always sort of, I don't know if it's a really great comparison, but obviously Auchinleck Talbot, they had the Scottish Cup basically, kind of like Banks OD, but they were dominating their leagues as other clubs weren't afforded these opportunities because it was only the winner. So they were getting all this Scottish Cup money in every year, but no one else was getting it. So it kind of kept them on top for years.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't think Auchinleck actually have a license, but it's the same idea in the fact that they're dominating leagues, so they're getting whatever. I think if you get to the fourth round, that's £40,000 in revenue, plus all the prize money for the previous rounds, and you get. I think they got something like 60 grand out of their cup run when they beat Ayr United, plus whatever they got for playing at Tynecastle. I think it was Tynecastle to play that in the following round. I can't quite remember, but I can understand why these clubs kind of want to stay a big fish in a small pond. If you saw Auchinleck Talbot's feature on View from the Terrace a few months ago, they basically just said, we like winning stuff, which is completely fair and understandable. But if it's at the cost, if it effectively stops other teams from the opportunities of winning titles, a club like Pollock or Kilwinning, they've got absolutely nothing to no chance of winning the league unless somebody pumps thousands and thousands of pounds into them, and all it would do is probably bankrupt them in the long run. I think the whole idea of moving to the pyramid does provide these clubs. It means that clubs are going to be playing at the level they should be playing at, which is a good thing for Scottish football in general.
Yeah, absolutely, and when the whole West of Scotland League was first sort of announced or first sort of discussed, Auchinleck Talbot were obviously one of the clubs that really were against it, and I think that was one of the reasons why you mentioned a View from the Terrace sort of thing, and there was a lot of animosity. I mean, I was at the Kelty Auchinleck game in the Scottish Cup earlier in the season, and there is a lot of animosity from. I think you spoke about it in terms of junior football. There is a bit of an attitude about the Lowland League, and possibly I wonder if it's the same with the Highland League, obviously with Banks OD and clubs like that.
I think it's a lot less, partly just because the crowds and the North juniors aren't as big. I think people are more annoyed at getting forced into something in the North rather than anything else. From what I've seen, people weren't really care. There's a lot of apathy towards it. Like I was at a Sunnybank game just before a month ago, and to be honest, the crowd at that was 28. So you can. I think most of these clubs are just focusing on trying to get through the season, trying to pay the wages and whatnot, not really bothered about whether or not what clubs and what system and stuff. I think a lot of the North clubs are a little bit concerned about the Junior Cup though, and I think the fact that they could be losing out on, say, a big day, half the gate when they play Auchinleck Talbot or Pollock in the Junior Cup. That's the one thing that's really irked to them. So hopefully the West of Scotland League allowing these clubs to still be playing the Junior Cup will help in that. But obviously, as you're saying, there's a lot of animosity in the South. I've seen the term traitors to the grade quite a lot over the last couple of years on social media, and I'm like, how can you be loyal to a grade of football? It does seem quite ridiculous. And the same people who were saying that are now, I can guarantee you, in a year's time, when they see their club thriving in a new division and playing in the South Challenge Cup or whatever it's called, the South Region Cup.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kicker.
Yeah, and that's what I would love to see. I would love to see. I've mentioned it before. I don't know if there's going to be a sort of cross league thing, but I would love to see that. Like the old sort of, well, not so much the Highland League, but I'm assuming they if they could get involved, that'd be great, because a lot of the guys I speak to have really good memories going up to these Highland League teams and the Scottish Cup and whatnot, and that's the away days to look forward to. So it'd be great to have like maybe a Scottish non-league cup, basically, like we did have with the Scottish Junior Cup, because it was really great to go on a big, massive away day against to see a team that you don't really see.
Yeah, I think that's what's the one thing I've said all throughout this about the whole pyramid negotiations and everything is I'd love, as a United fan, I'd love an away cup day to Orkney. Like that's what everyone wants, kind of. That everyone wants an away cup day to Orkney or someplace like that, someplace completely mental that you won't ever get to see it unless you're in the cup. And I do think the Junior Cup will probably be, if common sense takes hold, it'll probably be retrofitted so every team who's in tier 6 and below plays in that, and that's probably what it should be, to be honest. And I think maybe you can, and then the Scottish Cup's effectively for every club at tier 5 and above, plus a handful of clubs from West of Scotland, East of Scotland, whatever, who've got licences and such. That would be the sensible thing to do, because that's sort of what they do in England with I think it's the FA Trophy and the FA Vase, FA Vase. And I think the SFA tried to do that a few years ago, and under some format for at the time Highland, East and South clubs, but I don't think it got very far because the funding wasn't. It needed external funding, so it couldn't really run by itself. So hopefully, some sort of Scottish non-league cup competition can thrive, because I think that's what everyone wants to see. There's no reason why it can't exist and can't be successful.
I think going by obviously different regions, obviously the South Challenge Cup's one of the bigger non-league ones, and then you've got the Scottish Junior Cup. I would love to. I don't know if there's a lot of clubs willing to give up that sort of history or whatnot, but if they could maybe sort of meld them two into it and make it one massive competition, East, West, North, whoever, that would probably be the best for everyone, because you're going to go to. I think it would probably bring in more people. I think if you're taking 200, 300 away to a West team or a Highland team, it's for the supporters more than anyone, really.
Yeah, of course. I think in one of the documents that was posted online, like from some sort of, I think it was when the Highland and Lowland formed originally as well. So sorry, when the Lowland formed originally, the plan was that the Junior Cup would keep its name, but all the teams from the juniors would just move into a pyramid in some form, and it would be a non-league cup. And I think that's probably the way to go. I think there's certainly demand amongst a lot of the amongst a lot of the fans, as you say, for it. Like, I'd personally love to see, Bank City go against East Kilbride or against Lithgow Rose in the competition. It's the type of game that is a neutral I'd definitely go along to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of people are, if it's sort of one-off or it shouldn't be so bad, but I think the reason we obviously have regions is because of the finance involved in travelling and stuff. But if it's one-off games, I don't think it'll make much of a difference to the purse strings, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing they'd have to do if it is scrap replays, I think replays is costing a lot of junior clubs a lot of money, especially since these clubs disappeared from the competition. And I can sort of understand where they're coming from. Like, if you've got a play, like for example, there's I think Bridget Dawn Thistle played one of the West Lothian clubs. I can't remember which one. It might be Fauldhouse. And then they claimed that foxholes were digging up the pitch the day before the game, and the game got postponed. And it must have cost Fauldhouse hundreds, if not in the thousands of pounds in travel, because the game got postponed the next week due to a frozen pitch, which was genuinely frozen. And it's things like that, and then having to play a replay, it becomes overly cumbersome. And I think the second round of the Junior Cup this season was played over 5 weekends. That's just completely unsustainable, especially if you're trying to fit in a league campaign with 30 games on top of that, and another cup, as well as probably some sort of region like West Cup as well. So I think they've definitely got to look at how they can scrap replays and maybe playing them midweek or something. Yeah,
and that was another thing, obviously, because I believe it was Spartans. I can't remember, they were playing at Highland. Some things are obviously unavoidable because I think it was due to the weather, but I remember Spartans were playing I can't remember what the team was. It was one of the Highland teams anyway earlier in the Scottish Cup, and I think they had to travel up on like a Monday night or something because the game was postponed. So, so they weren't best happy with that, obviously.
Yeah, of course. There's things that you kind of can't, that aren't under their control. The one thing I have noticed though in the divide between Highland and Lowland clubs is that Lowland clubs seem to be, or Lowland region clubs seem to be far more involved in the community. I've noticed. Blackburn United in the east of Scotland would be a prime example of a club that that were a very small West Lothian junior club, 10 years ago, and they've really came on leaps and bounds, got a new community club set up with artificial surfaces, floodlights, everything that you probably need for a club of that size nowadays. None of the Highland League clubs have artificial surfaces. A lot of them have got facilities that were built quite a few years ago now, and there seems to be, from most of them, don't really seem to be that active in the community, or as active as they can be, and I think that's a real shame. I think that's probably what's hindering the Highland League, and it also means that they don't have, the facilities that you probably need to play football in this part of the world during the winter.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because there are so many, even former junior teams like sort of Kelty and Bonnie Rig Rose. They're kind of, I wouldn't say they're turning more into community clubs because they've always had that sort of sense of feel, but certainly a lot of the Lowland League teams, BSC Glasgow, Cumbernauld Colts, they kind of started as community clubs with players from different age groups and whatnot, and I think that's maybe just how they started. Really, is probably the reason behind that. And obviously, the Highland League's been going on for probably, over 100 years. I think maybe.
Yeah, I think 1800s. I think is when it started. I think it was like 1891 or something.
Yeah, so like it's maybe just that, and obviously when you see something great in terms of a community club, like for example Spartans, they're obviously one of the bigger non-league teams in Lothian. A lot of Lothian teams around them will want to copy that model.
Yeah, of course. I think the only time that you see clubs really have any sort of improvement in facilities, and it does tend to be that these community clubs get the funding from local councils to do that sort of thing. It tends to be because someone who's wealthy from the Aberdeen oil industry has put in a couple of $100,000 into the club. Like that's what you see at Cove. I think Banks of Dee are probably the only club I can think of off the top of my head that have that sort of community angle, because they've got the kind of the gym in the main stand there, and they've got I think they've got loads of youth teams as well, and I do think that's something that's lacking. There's a couple that are at least trying to get involved in the community. Fort William's probably the best example of a club that has certainly tried to pitch itself like that. But I think that's more because of necessity of them, finishing bottom every year.
Yeah,
and they kind of have to do that if they're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And it is a real shame. If you, like you say, Spartans is probably a prime example of a club that has ingratiated itself in the community and done really well. Like there was a UEFA study that said that Spartans gave like £5 million every year to the local economy and well-being benefits and in local businesses. So that's the type of thing that I think Highland League clubs need to kind of attain to. And as you said, with Cumbernauld Colts, that's something that I've noticed a lot of the junior clubs are kind of is used as a stick to hit the Lowland League at. It's kind of make fun of the Lowland League. Oh, you're filled with boys clubs. Oh, you're filled with ex-youth teams or whatever. And to be honest, to that I'd say good, because these clubs are growing whilst a lot of other clubs in the non-league and lower leagues in Scotland are stagnating. I think a lot of West junior teams will probably notice next year when they go to say Bonnytown Thistle or Drumchapel, of how a well-run non-league club can be community-based and can be successful. Yeah,
I mean that was funny, because you do that was a lot of the sort of flack that BSC Glasgow got in for in particular, obviously, but it's a really interesting point actually, and it's good explanation, because I've never really considered that in terms of the Highland League. But Is it different for the likes of Inverness, Cally, Thistle, and Elgin City? Are they more sort of community based? I know they loan a lot of players out to particularly young players to a lot of the Highland clubs.
Yeah, to be honest, I can't really give you too much of an answer to that one. I think because that's a bit further west to where I stay and everything. But I think Inverness Cally have got a lot of flack, in particular over not doing that, because that's why if you look at their crowds, they're incredibly low. Like they're much lower than Ross County. For a side that plays in the seventh biggest town in Scotland, or city, seventh biggest place in Scotland, they get 2,500 through the gate most weeks. So there's certainly, I think, a lot more scope for these clubs, even in the SPFL, to do a bit more. Elgin, I don't really know. I've heard Elgin's really well run. I've not. It's one of the few grounds in the SPFL I've not been to, so I can't really comment on what they're doing. The one thing with Inverness Cally is that I know they applied to join the Highland League as a colt side.
Yeah.
And they were quite rightly rejected. Personally, I think colt side should be put as far away as possible from the pyramid, because it's a very bad precedent. But I think that was the reason they sent 7 players out on loan. I think it was 7 out on loan to Fort William.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't have a colt side in the division, so they thought, oh well, we'll give players to Fort William. No one really will care because they're near the bottom of the league anyway, and it gets these guys experience of playing games in a tough league.
When I was doing the transfers on Football Manager, I couldn't believe how many players the likes of Cally and Elgin City have out on loan to the Highland. It was it was mental, the numbers. We'd obviously get that sort of down here as well, but it's maybe like 3-4 max. We're talking maybe in the 20s anyway, in terms of numbers for each club, I think.
Of course, but you've got to remember in the SPFL there's only 6 clubs probably north of Aberdeen that are in the leagues.
Yeah.
And then in the Lowland, there's one every probably 5 or 10 miles down by your way. You just think you can just think anything from Dunfermline to Greenock, there'll be one every 5 or 6 miles, well maybe a bit more than that, every 10 or so miles. And so there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more clubs for players to play at, whilst that in the north it's less so because there's less people and there's going to be less clubs with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It wasn't a knock on Inverness Cally or Elgin, obviously, because they need to, like similar to any club, down this way as well. Your Hibs, Hearts, it doesn't really matter, but they obviously need to get their youth out to progress and whatnot. And it's probably best that they send their the players closer to home, I guess. Yeah,
of course. I think if you're an 18-year-old training at Inverness, what's best for you. You end up getting sent out on loan to Falkirk or Airdrie, and have to travel 6-hour round trip every weekend, or do you get sent out on loan to Buckie, who are near the top of the Highland League, so you might not be playing at exactly the same level, but you're a lot closer to home and you're playing a lot more. It's a lot less stressful in terms of travelling up and down every week.
Yeah. Well, it's been great talking to you, mate. Have you got anything else you want to add?
Follow Stonewaller Magazine on Twitter at Stonewaller_mag. Got to get the cheeky plug in there, otherwise the boss will be annoyed at me. But no, it's been great coming on and talking about the pyramid and other things.
Yeah, it's been a good chat. I mean, we've tended not to reach out to Highland League teams at the moment because they're more than welcome to come on and stuff, but we've had so much basically correspondence. Obviously, the Lowland League, which is tend to be our focus, west of Scotland, east of Scotland. So, but yeah, anyone from the Highland League that wants to come on and discuss things, I'm more than happy to sit and discuss it. As you probably have learned, Alex, my knowledge of the Highland League's probably not as great because it's not my focus basically, on this pod. But it's been great, obviously, chatting to you and getting a wee bit of perspective on the Highland League, different views, some interesting ones and stuff that I didn't really consider as well, mate. And I just want to say cheers for coming on. Appreciate all your chat, and stay safe and good luck with uni and whatnot. And stay in touch.
Of course I will do. It's been really good coming on and talking about the pyramid. So, aye, of course, thanks.
And hopefully, I'll get to a few Highland League Cup games or something, Scottish Cup, or if there's a non-league cup or whatever, hopefully I'll get to see some teams next season, I think.
Hopefully. I didn't get as many done as I probably should have since I've been up here. The one with Inverurie has been really killing me. I've gone 5 times, tried to go and see them 5 times, and for various reasons it's not happened. My favourite one, I went to go see them play Fort William, and the game got postponed when I got in the ground.
Oh God! Did you travel far? Was it much of a travel?
It's from Aberdeen to Inverurie, but I was meeting a mate there, so we ended up just going for a pint in the local pub, so it wasn't too bad. But it was really frustrating because that was the third time. I was like, nah, I'm cursed at this point. I just cannot see Inverurie this season.
Well, as I said, mate, good luck with everything, and hopefully, if there's any developments and whatnot, we'll get you back on again. We'll have a chat, and I think it's all up in the air at the moment. Well, what's going on? So, it might be a wee while, but yeah, stay safe, mate. All right.
Yep, you too. Thank you.